Hello and what is up, YouTube? My name is G3Iron, and we just got this news from Chris Wilson at Grinding Gear Games, giving us some more background as to the reasoning for the 3.13 launch delay. We've all been chatting about this over the last 24 hours or so, so let's read this together, react together, and then respond together as well. So feel free to drop us a comment down below with your thoughts. Let's dive into Chris's thoughts right here. Our reasoning behind the 3.13 launch delay. While I try to write candidly, I don't normally talk about every motivation that we have when making decisions. I feel that this is a case where it's important that we lift the curtain a bit and explain all the factors that influenced this decision. Action RPGs are about finding items, leveling up characters, and accomplishing difficult challenges, all while comparing your progress to your friends and feeling that you found better stuff earlier than they did. The most exciting time for this is right after the launch of a new league, because it comes with a fresh economy to play in. Players arrange time off work, queue to log in right as the league opens, and then push really hard to get established in the league before other people can. The first days or weeks of a new league are by far the most exciting time for players, and this is reflected in our metrics that track player engagement. There is a massive spike at the start of a league, which gradually drifts down over the 13 weeks before it spikes up again for the next one. We have designed our entire business model around this by doing our content releases at league launch, our marketing at league launch, releasing our mystery boxes, supporter packs, and new microtransactions at league launch, etc. It's incredibly critical that league launches go as well as possible. This is also why we have our launches on Friday afternoons or evenings, depending on whether you're in America or in Europe, to maximize weekend time available for players' first push. So, what impact do other games have on this? So far, we have historically been really lucky to almost always avoid directly clashing with the release of other major games. However, in late 2019, we released the Blight League less than 2 weeks after WoW Classic's launch. This had a massively negative impact on player numbers, play hours, Twitch views, and revenue. It was a bit of a disaster and quite a big learning experience for us. The truth is, for a lot of players, if they miss the initial launch of a league, they'll probably skip it or not take it anywhere near as seriously as if they managed to make good progress and get established in the early days or weeks. It's vitally important to have a clean release. As a side note, this is why we also have a lot of implicit motivation to make sure our releases are as stable and as bug-free as possible. Bad launches have very large ripple effects that could threaten our ability to sustain the game. Cyberpunk 2077 is a massive game. A lot of people are going to play it, and they're probably going to play it pretty hard. By looking at the stats from services like Steam, you can see the player engagement curves for large releases like this, and it's easy to see that there will be likely several weeks of absolute dominance while everyone enjoys it. I understand that you may feel that you can run through a single player game in a weekend, but realistically, gamers as a whole are going to be very occupied for at least a few weeks. Prior to yesterday's announcement, we were somewhat comfortable with the relative timing between Cyberpunk's previous release date and our target release date for 3.13. There was a 3-week gap, which was closer than we'd like, but probably enough time to not existentially threaten 3.13's release. They then announced a delay of their release to within 24 hours of our launch. I understand that if you don't plan to play Cyberpunk, you may feel that it's an overreaction for us to want to move out of its way. I am deeply sorry about the inconvenience and disappointment, but the commercial reality is that if we kept our original release date, we would be fucked. Those are Chris's words, not mine. We believe we'd lose at least half of our players, almost all of our streamers, a chunk of our developers. Chris, you wouldn't lose me. I'm just saying. Chris, you will not lose me. Maybe that's all of your streamers, but you won't lose me. And we honestly wouldn't blame them. Launching at the same time as a game of that size is not feasible. Okay, so can we launch earlier in December? Well, not really. As we mentioned last week, 3.13 has been scoped carefully to avoid development crunch and quality issues at launch. Trying to finish it faster would reintroduce both problems. Also, how many weeks early would we have to launch in order to avoid getting trampled by Cyberpunk's release? So releasing early is by far the hardest option. All right, but what about later in December? So this issue here is Christmas. In New Zealand, it's summer in December, and Christmas is typically when people take their annual leave to spend time with their families and friends in the sun. It's very common for some companies to work 11 months of the year and have all of their time off in late December and early January. While we encourage our staff to take some breaks throughout the year, there's certainly a strong bias towards people choosing to be away in late December, and that's not something that I am going to ask them to give up. Launching 1 week later than we planned on December 18th means that almost all of our staff would be away immediately after launch, preventing us from fixing post-release problems, doing the console launches, supporting G Arena, Tencent for their launches, etc. In addition, 1 week doesn't really get out of the time window where a lot of people will be playing Cyberpunk. We also can't launch on December 25th or January 1st for obvious reasons. So that leaves January 8th or January 15th as valid launch dates. As explained before, hitting a weekend is critical for the launch to go well. A lot more team members are back by the 15th, so that is the date that we are likely to announce. I want to say to my team, you guys had a difficult year. Go have a great vacation, come back recharged, and we'll launch a product that we're confident in. To me, this is possibly as important a reason as trying to avoid having our numbers crushed by another game. It's a very hard call to make, to delay a release by this much, as it's a huge revenue and schedule hit. In this case, the delay being essentially forced upon us does mean that we get some other benefits. We usually waste a lot of time each cycle preparing marketing materials from a less than half finished build of the expansion, as they have to constantly be updated as the expansion changes. With this schedule, we can make the expansion good first, then prepare its marketing and announcement. It also gives us a month more time for quality assurance and probably means that we can actually use our alpha realm for its intended purpose. Alpha testers aren't allowed to talk about what they see on alpha, but the state of the game at that point is usually a bit of a shit show. I think we only managed to get one actual league up and playable this year before its release. That will change if we have this extra month between completion of the expansion and its release. For the other 50% of Path of Exile players who read all of the above and are still sad that 3.13 isn't coming out in December, we are trying very hard to prepare interesting events for everyone to play. I'd much rather try to underpromise and overdeliver here, but we are kicking around some ideas. Bex is campaigning very hard for us to work out how to do an endless delve, for example. I am really sorry that this decision has disappointed loyal Path of Exile fans who are excited to see what we've been working on for our next endgame expansion, and we're looking forward to spending their holidays playing it. While I feel that we picked the best of several bad outcomes, while I have been mentally feeling a lot better after committing to this decision yesterday, I still can't get over the thoughts that we have let you guys down. I promise that we will work very hard to make sure there's plenty of fun POE going on over the holidays, followed by a kick-ass expansion, posted by Chris of Grinding Gear Games. All right, so I have a lot of thoughts on this. It's going to take me some time to collect all of my thoughts on this and then respond. I will probably think on this overnight. I'll probably sleep on it because it's nighttime for me here in the U.S. It's after a work day. So I'll probably sleep on it and then comment on this tomorrow when streaming. But the first thing that initially comes to mind here, okay, there's a number of bad outcomes, and Chris has laid them all out very, very well. And as often I am desirous of doing, thank you, Grinding Gear Games, for being forthcoming and for over communicating rather than under communicating. The last couple of communications coming out of GGG have been somewhat confusing with the amount of material and amount of information that we've had. And so, of course, for the last 24 hours, we've all been speculating, hey, was it because of WoW and Blight? Was it because of Cyberpunk initially? Was it because of the financial potential market loss? Was it because players were potentially going to choose this or that? Like, I feel like Chris has answered a lot of those questions that players have been asking over the last 24 hours in this post. So I applaud Grinding Gear Games for coming forward and for being transparent. I think GGG is a leader in their communication in the gaming industry, and more companies should do things like this. That being said, I still am feeling that internal tension because this definitely is a change in direction and in a change in messaging literally from 24 hours ago. 24 hours ago, we were told, hey, that extra month isn't going to be used for 3.13. Now we're being told explicitly, hey, you guys should all be happy because that extra month is going to make 3.13 better. Which one is it? We were told yesterday, hey, we're not going to spend that time using that time on 3.13. We're going to do it on 3.14. Now it seems to be that we're hearing the development thoughts of the team in real time as they're trying to communicate in the midst of a storm of controversy and conversation about Path of Exile. Precisely because of an announcement that came out yesterday that said, hey, 3.13, the extra time won't be used for that. It'll be used for 3.14. So now we're being told it's going to be used for 3.13. I think a lot of players would have been okay with this post coming first, right? Yesterday's post, it was overly ambiguous. Some of you who have watched the stream have heard me use the term be sufficiently ambiguous before. This post is sufficiently ambiguous. There's still shadows. There's still details that we might want to ask and questions that we might want to ask the decision makers at Grinding Gear Games. But for the most part, most of those shadows are filled in. Most of the ambiguity that we have here are about particular numbers of revenue hits, particular numbers of player numbers and player retention numbers, particulars, right? That's fine. You can be vague about that. You as a company should be vague about that because you don't want your competitors to know about that. So that's fine, right? That's being sufficiently ambiguous. Yesterday, I feel like was just ambiguous. This, I feel like, is much more sufficiently ambiguous. That being said, like I said, I'm still one of the, I guess maybe I don't even count as a streamer because I don't stream this game full time. I'm just a dude who plays this game and has fun with it as a hobby. But I'm one of the guys who would not have been lost if we would have booted up the league over December. So while that's a bummer, again, I'm only looking at it from my perspective. That's a bummer for me. I ranted about it earlier today on Twitch, and those highlights will go up tomorrow or something at some point. I ranted about the players who have taken time off around the globe to play this game during December. And I am not one of those players, so that's not a personal complaint of mine. But there are others who have taken off time to be able to play this game during the December launch, because for the most part, GGG has been like clockwork. And so here's hoping that what Chris says here at the end really goes forward. And there is something really, really fun and exciting to play over Christmas for those players who did take off time to play. Maybe it's a legacy league. Maybe it's an endless delve, which is what Bex is campaigning for. So feel free to drop a comment down below with what you would like, because GGG does do a great job of listening. Again, they don't always comment on everything, but they are pretty much always listening to feedback, whether that's on Reddit, whether that's on the forums, whether that's on YouTube, whether that's on Twitch. Again, Twitch was mentioned in here at least twice about streamers, both for the launch right here, and then in terms of metrics of how they evaluate how a league goes. Like Twitch views is something that they actually use internally, or at least what they're willing to talk about. So I would just say, if you want your voice heard about what you want to come over the Christmas break and what you want GGG to do in the future, then feel free to voice it, drop a comment down below, because GGG is always watching. Anyway, thanks so much for listening and for reacting with us to our reasons behind the 3.13 launch. And I hope that today is the day, or maybe over this special Christmas event, that'll be the day that a Mirror of Calandra will drop for you. Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.